we are looking at a situation whereby colleges of education to get to the level at which they should be able to also produce graduates. And that is what we call degree awarding status. They should be given degree awarding status to the level that, because almost all colleges of education in Nigeria today are producing graduates, though in affiliation with university, but they are the one teaching them, they are the one, doing everything that are needed to be done to get them produced. They only do it in the name of the affiliate universities. And the problem we have is this: primary school does not have an alternative. Everybody must go to primary school. Secondary school does not have an alternative. Everybody must go to secondary school. But tertiary education has alternatives. We have colleges of education, polytechnics, and universities. And because they are alternatives, definitely people want to go. Which one is the highest? Is the university in terms of ranking, in terms of level? So everybody will definitely want to go to the university. There is no teacher produced in other sectors that can teach better in primary school, in nursery school, at the crèche level, better than a teacher that is produced in colleges of education. That is a fact that has been established. College of Education Act has not been amended since 2003. That means the provisions in the Act, they have become obsolete. It's only in college of education that you still see a principal officer, either a provost, a registrar, a bursar, still going for second term. In the university, in the polytechnics, their acts have been amended to make it a single term of 5 years.
Hello and welcome to the Education Podcast by EduCeleb. I'm your host, EduCeleb. In this edition, we have been joined by the National President of the Colleges of Education Academic Staff Union, Dr. Smart Olugbeko. Hello, sir. And thank
Hello, sir. You're welcome, sir. Yeah.
All right, sir. So let's just go straight into in the course of this podcast, we'll be looking into issues regarding teacher education and what COEASU is all about. So starting with that, what exactly is COEASU doing in terms of addressing the challenges in teacher education in Nigeria, sir?
Thank you very much for is the acronym for Colleges of Education Academic Staff Union. It is a labor union that is specifically established to promote the welfare of members who are lecturers and librarians and even instructors in colleges of education. And for us to be able to do that effectively, it also demands that we look into various issues that affect service delivery in the system. And that takes us to look at the quality or the process that leads to the production of teachers. And if we talk about that, we can say that the issues that have got to do with what COEASU as a union does becomes so complicated in terms of the fact that we have to look at various issues that may actually promote or actually also affect service delivery in colleges of education. But essentially by law, COEASU is established to promote the welfare of teachers in colleges of education.
In the process of achieving this, was one of the instruments, not exactly with COEASU, but other unions, one of the instruments they usually use is going on strike. How has COEASU been able to reduce among the 3 unions, the major tertiary education unions, COEASU goes on strike lesser than others? In as much as I understand that in certain colleges of education, staff go on strike right on, but not on the national scale. How has COEASU been managing its relationship with the government in order to avoid so numerous strikes, unlike others?
Well, it is not as if COEASU doesn't want to go on strike, or not because there are issues that we make COEASU to go on strike. But the different unions, they have different strategies that are being used at least to make government to accede to their demands. Even unions that strike is mostly as a result of government insensitivity to their demands. You know, the training we receive as teachers is quite different from the training others receive. As teachers, we are in local parentis to our students. We are just like their parents. And being educationists, we understand the impact of disruption in the academic calendar. That is why we are a little bit hesitant when it comes to the issue of strike action. Not that we had not gone on strike in the past. In 2014, we were on strike for 7 months. And in 2018, we were also on strike. But in the last 2-3 years, in engaging government on various that affect our sector, and government, not that government has been able to resolve those issues, but we are taking our time because we also understand that our students are the receiving end, because when you have a government that doesn't care whether students, where calendars are disrupted or not, then we become a little bit hesitant at ensuring that if at all we go on strike, it will have been completely inevitable.
It's understood that there are certain gaps in teacher education in Nigeria. In what ways has COEASU and its members been able to address these gaps?
When we talk about gap, there are different types. When we talk of gap, in what area are you actually looking at? Because when we talk of gap, there are a lot of things to be discussed under that.
In the regulation of teacher education in Nigeria?
Yeah, in terms of regulation, the statutory body that is responsible for teacher education regulation in Nigeria, when it comes to the colleges of education, because in Nigeria we have the NCC, which is National Commission for Colleges of Education, which regulates colleges of education. We also have the TRCN that also regulates the area of professionalism of teachers, giving certificate of professionalism to teachers. So when we talk about NCC, when we talk about, you know, the regulatory aspects of teacher education, because what government has not done is government has not actually established a regulatory agency or commission that will regulate teacher education. So what government has done is to have established this of education. So, and that has been, you know, part of our point, that there should be a regulatory agency for teacher education, not for colleges of education. Because when we talk about teacher education, it is not only colleges of education that produce teachers. Teachers are being produced in the universities, in the faculty of education. Teachers are being produced even by NTI. So the commission that we have, which is NCC, regulates production of teachers in colleges of education. So that when we are talking about teacher production, we expect a situation whereby there will be a uniform regulation, irrespective of who is producing the teacher, at what level the teacher is being produced. There should be a commission that will regulate teacher production or teacher education or teachers' activities in such a way. For instance, when we talk about other professions, we have all these regulatory agencies that when you're talking about medical profession, we have a commission, we have a council that is responsible irrespective of where, even when such a person is produced abroad, when he comes here to Nigeria to practice, that council still responsible for regulating the activity of those medical individuals. So if we are talking about regulation at the level of colleges of education, the NCC is regulated. But the power of NCC has actually not been able, you know, to cater for what is actually needed in the subsector. And this is unconnected to the fact that education is on concurrent list. We have federal colleges of education and we have state colleges of education. We even have private colleges of education. And you discover that most of the times, the state colleges of education operate even outside the condition of service and the regulations stipulated by the commission. Why? Because they are proprietors, the state governors, they most of the time act as outside the regulation to do some affected even the quality, the service delivery in those institutions. So there are a lot of problems, there are a lot of factors that are actually hindering effective implementation of what will have been regulations, rules, policies that will have guided production of teachers in Nigeria. And this has created a great gap.
Are you saying now that the multiplicity of these agencies like the NCCA and the TRC and some these two major ones, the two major ones in terms of teacher education, are included in addition to the NUC that regulating? Do you believe that are you suggesting that there should be a fusion of the roles or what?
No. That is not what I'm canvassing. I'm not actually canvassing for that. The NUC is regulating university education, which is okay. MBT is regulating polytechnic education, which is fine. And NCC is regulating colleges of education. But what I'm talking about is when we talk about teacher education, or we talk about teachers, what I said that teachers are being produced, even in all the sectors. Universities produce teachers, colleges of education produce teachers, even polytechnic produce teachers, like Polytechnic Kaduna produces teachers. So if we are talking about that, I'm talking about there should be a commission that will regulate teacher education, whether it is in the university, whether it is in polytechnic, whether it is in a college of education. That commission will be able to streamline activities that leads to teacher production in the various sectors. For instance, if you are talking about teacher education, those that are produced by NCE, by college of education, and those that are produced by the universities, there should be a streamline of even curriculum so that there will not be duplicity. There will not be a situation whereby what someone has learned at the level of NCE should not be repeated at the level of degree. So, because if they have a unified body, a body that unifies this curricula, then they will be able to come up with, a kind of curriculum that will be holistic, will have taken care of some of these things, and the gap in the production will have been reduced.
The NCE that we talk about, that's a Nigeria Certificate in Education. Don't you think it has outlived its usefulness, considering the fact that at many of the openings in the private sector, especially, they don't usually request NCE holders to apply. It's only in government, it's mainly in government establishments that you see them including NCE in the requirements. Usually you find that you mention the bachelor's degree for most private jobs. And even in the case of the public jobs that we have NCE, they are limited to primary schools most times. Don't you think that the NCE has outlived its usefulness in that regard?
I want to explain this because this is one of the misconceptions we have even in the sector. And most of our people, they are not quite familiar with the mandate of College of Education. It is very specific. The purpose is to produce teachers at the basic level of our education. And that is the fact. And if you look at the history, how the nation itself got to the level of establishing College of Education, it is a transformation from teacher grade 2 that led to the level at which we have College of Education. And College of Education was established specifically to produce teachers that will teach at the basic level of our education. And that is their function, that is their purpose. They were not trained to become administrators. They were not trained to become any other thing other than teachers. And it has been specific about that. I give you this assurance. teachers that are produced in colleges of education to teach at the basic level, they have been specifically trained to perform the duty of teaching at that level. And I can assure us, there is no teacher produced in other sectors that can teach better in primary school, in nursery school, at the crèche level, better than a teacher that is produced in colleges of education. That is a fact that has been established because they were specifically trained to do that. So when we talk about whether they have outlived their usefulness, it's not. It is only because the way we look at things in Nigeria, we look at things from the angle of certificates. And that is why you discover that even those in polytechnics are clamoring to become degree awarding or for their certificate to be upgraded to the level of degree, because that is the mentality, of Nigerians, whereby people want to see things from the other side. And the problem we have is this: primary school does not have an alternative. Everybody must go to primary school. Secondary school does not have an alternative. Everybody must go to secondary school. But tertiary education has alternatives. We have colleges of education, polytechnics, and university. And because the alternatives, definitely people want to go. Which one is the highest? Is the university in terms of ranking, in terms of level? So everybody will definitely want to go to the university. And that is why people believe that university education it takes priority, which is correct. But that has not removed or reduced the importance of the colleges of education, in the sense that the graduates being produced at that level are the most competent, the most qualified to teach at the basic level of our education. A graduate who backs NCE and who knows his onions will teach better than any other graduate at the level of crèche, nursery school, and primary school. And that fact remains sacrosanct.
But well, still in that area, we will be able to establish that those that are meant to teach at the basic level are, what do you call it, are the NCE holders. How can we strengthen these NCE holders to be relevant in the society?
But when we talk about relevance in society, they are relevant in society because they perform the mandates for which, for instance, I've not seen a nurse that is working in the ministry as a clerk or as an administrator. A nurse will always be in the hospital. A laboratory technician or technologist will not work as a clerk in the ministry. It will definitely be in the lab. So you do not expect an NC graduate to be working as a clerk or as an administrator in the ministry. He or she is supposed to be in the classroom. And that is our position about that. And the reason why Nigerian government came up with colleges of education was for the graduates to be able to go into our schools and teach. And that remains the primary mandate of graduates from colleges of education. So that is the service that they render to Nigerians by teaching in the primary schools, by teaching at the basic level, by teaching at the crèche level, by teaching at the nursery level. This is a service they render to Nigeria, and that makes them one of the most relevant people that contribute to Nigeria development.
So still in that area, we're looking into the issue of the proliferation of colleges, private colleges of education. With some, we have some instances where colleges of education were established in schools, in secondary schools, and all such things like that. That took the intervention of some state governments in counseling or regulating this. Is that a way of showing that there is a gap in the regulation of the entire NCE program entirely?
Yes, I think that is correct, and it's one of the challenges we are confronting, and you understand Nigerian way of doing things, that people like to do things without passing through due process. Private colleges of education are allowed, but they have to be licensed and they have to be regulated by the National Commission for Colleges of Education. You understand that some people will find a way of avoiding the regulation because they do not want to do the right thing. And that is why you discover that we have some of these colleges, in some of our states. In fact, I was in Bauchi State where we are trying to, identify some of this. We have, in Bauchi State alone, we have more than even 100 private colleges of education that are everywhere. And you discover that some of these problems are associated with weak regulatory power of the commission. Because you discover that if the commission itself is not empowered, they don't have the necessary funding to be able to go around, to supervise, to monitor, to evaluate, then they will not be able to do things. And as we have known, one of the challenges we face in this country is a lack of funding, because some of these commissions are not well funded. And when they are not well funded, you do not expect them, to be able to carry out the monitoring exercise effectively. So because some of these proprietors of these colleges are quite aware of this, so they hide under that to perpetrate some of this at the level of the union. We carried out in 2020, we carried out a thorough evaluation. We monitor in all the states of the federation, and we're able to come up with a list of colleges that are operating illegally. And it is not just only, it's not only in college education, even the universities. And NUC came up with list of illegal universities, more than 100. And you'll be appalled that we could have them operating in Nigeria. So it is some people's way of circumventing the rules and the regulation, and yet they still want to operate without abiding. But we are on top of the situation, we have done it, and the NCC also in 2021 sent the monitoring group across the states in the federation, and they have been able to identify the list of these illegal colleges of education, and the new executive secretary of NCC is taking drastic measures to curtail it and also to bring some of them, to be prosecuted.
Also, we have to bring on the NCC executive secretary later on in another episode, so I would learn about what the agency is doing. So away from that, sir. Yes, sir. So away from that, how is the okay? You may, before I go into the next question, you just made a mention of the fact that you said that the COEASU has a list of illegal colleges of education. Could you please avail us of the list?
Yeah, we had a list, but the list had just been submitted to NCC and to the ministry. So we want to get, is when we get there, we have to, we must make official presentation of our report, which we had just done, and we need the acknowledgement from them. So when we get acknowledgement and we have a discussion on that, then we'll be able to make it available to the public. Then we can make the list available to you.
Oh, all right, sir. So they have the NTI, which is also an NCE awarding institution. What do you say about our NTI operates vis-a-vis the standard expected in teacher education in Nigeria? At least at the various levels, we understand that the National Teachers Institute, it has programs at the NCE degree as well as a postgraduate diploma in education program. So what do you say about its activities, and what's the relationship between COEASU and the NTI staff, or how we put it?
Well, we at the level of our union, we understand that the establishment of NTI was done in order to arrest the serious gap that the nations had then in the production of teachers. And our union, because NTI does not have permanent teachers, does not have permanent lecturers. So we do not have them as members of our union. And the way you see NCI is the way some people see Open University. And ordinarily, people were opposed to the continuous existence of NTI because they believe that the emergency situation that led to its establishment is no longer available. And just as some people, were opposed to the establishment of Open University because they believe that it will erode quality, the same way some people, they have seen the continuous existence of NTI. But as it is not the NTI that is a problem. In every Open University, that's a problem. The problem is regulation. When things are done properly, it is done all over the world. Even correspondence education is done all over the world. It is to be done all over the world. But when we talk about regulation, regulation is what is important. If it is well regulated, for the fact that we have colleges of education producing NCE graduates and NCI producing NCE graduates, we don't have any problem with that. The problem we have is National Teachers Institute, the regulatory aspects must be done in such a way that the quality of teachers to be produced through NTI and those to be produced through college of education should be the same. That is what is important. And that is the role that can be performed by the regulatory agencies. And if they are not strengthened, if the institutions are not strengthened, they will not be able to perform those roles.
So talking about strengthening the capacity now, let's talk about the members of COEASU. In what ways has COEASU been collaborating with some stakeholders beyond the government in terms of building the capacity of its members?
So that is part of our primary responsibilities, because as a union, we cherish quality delivery from our members. And we are much more happy when we discover that our members are doing very well. And we become proud of them when we get reports that our members are performing excellently. And for us to be able to sustain this as a union, we collaborate with government agencies. We have a robust relationship with NCCE. We have a good relationship even with the ministry. We have a very good relationship with TED Fund and with JAM and all those agencies that are critical stakeholders in education. And at our level, we do organize seminars, symposia, and conferences that we further empower the capacity of our members to be able to deliver the way the sector, we want it. And in 2021, we had a national seminar that was well attended by all government agencies in Abuja. And in December, on 24th of November, we had a national symposium that also was well attended by the various stakeholders in education. And all this we are doing in order to be able to strengthen the capacity of our members for effective and quality delivery in the sector. And this we have been doing.
One of the arguments that have been put forward by some stakeholders in the education sector is that there is a disconnect between the findings that researchers at the higher education do and what really happens in the classrooms at the primary or secondary school levels, which are usually most times the subject of research work. So how do we synergize efforts of the outputs of our research with the realities on the ground?
Yeah, you see, it is not just, it's a universal problem. When we talk about, even when we talk about research, what we are talking, the kind of research we talk about now is a research that will be able to address societal issues, societal problems. And not only that, there should be a connect between research and industries, between the research and private sectors, because it's supposed to be the drive, of our development. But in reality, we have not been able to achieve that. If you look at the number of researchers we have in Nigeria, there could be millions. And these are researches that they are cutting edge. They have actually done them to be able, to get the best out of this. But unfortunately, the enabling environment is not available for this to be possible. And if government does not take the lead, it is when you come up with the research, you are not the one that will make use of the research. You have done your research, what you need to do is to make the findings of your research available for it to be used, whether in the industry, whether in the government, whether anywhere. But when government itself is not taking seriously even the outcome of researches, then it becomes just mere papers. And that is where we have professors in various fields who had carried out different researches. They ask, what has happened to these researches, to these papers? They are there in the dustbin. So it is not about researchers. I research, I am not the one that will make use of it. So the government, the industry will make use of it. But even where are the industry that will make use of it? Where you, for instance, you have you come up with a research in Ekiti State, for instance, or in those states, for instance, and how many industries do you have, even in that state, that will make use of it, even in Nigeria as a whole? So some of these things, they are there, but because the society itself, our country itself has been shocked to the extent that the only place where you have life, where you have activities, they are within government circle. So the outside that's supposed to drive the growth of the country, to drive the development, they have been shocked out, and they are not in a sense. Therefore, most of our researches, they are there in the dustbin and just lie waste there.
Going back to the colleges of education, there is an effort at the legislature sometimes go to. We also have a new Colleges of Education Act. What steps have been taken by ASU in order to ensure that this becomes a reality?
The new college, you see, of the 3 tiers, because Nigeria tertiary education is on a tripod: University, Polytechnic, and College of Education. College of Education Act has not been amended since 2003. That means the provisions in the Act, they have become obsolete. They are no longer in reality, in tune with reality. And when we came up that there should be ordinarily it is government, supposed to be an executive bill, because the government ought to have known that the acts that they are using to run the colleges, they are no longer in tune with reality. But because government is not interested, so we needed to take it up, and a private bill is moving this. And what are we looking at? We are looking at a lot of provisions in the Act that will help College of Education to be able to discharge its responsibility more effectively. For instance, even in the structure, it will interest you to note that even when it comes to the level of even location of College of Education in the Act, for instance, they will tell you Federal Colleges of Education, Okene, Kwara State, in the Act. When Federal College of Education, Okene, is in Kogi State. That is to tell you that by the time the Act came into existence, the state was not yet in existence, and yet it has not been amended to reflect that reality. And you look at even the tenure of principal officers. It's only in College of Education that you still see a principal officer, either a provost, a registrar, a bursar, still going for second term. In the university, in the polytechnics, their acts have been amended to make it a single term of 5 years. And in most of our colleges today, when we have crisis, it's as a result of a provost wants to go for second term, and some people, they don't want him or her to go for second term. There are frictions, there are problems, just like it happens in the political space, whereby a political officer that wants to go for second term, the kind of activities they get involved in. The same thing happens, but in this act, it will be corrected. And there are a lot of, even the functions of the governing council, the composition of the governing council, the one we had in 2003 is no longer in tune with reality. And the most importantly is we are looking at a situation whereby colleges of education to get to the level at which they should be able to also produce graduates. And that is what we call degree awarding status. They should be given degree awarding status to the level that, because almost all colleges of education in Nigeria today are producing graduates, though in affiliation with university, but they are the one teaching them, they are the one doing everything that are needed to be done to get them produced. They only do it in the name of the affiliate universities. So we felt that we have gotten to a level at which colleges of education, they should also be able to produce graduates. And that will mean for them to have NCE, and from NCE, you move to the degree level and you graduate. And that makes them to be double qualified. And these are some of the things we are conversing in this in the act, and it will be of great benefit to the country in the sense that the capacity, for instance, the JAMB, we always talk about lack of space. 1.3 million candidates wrote UTME, and only 450 spaces are available. And why? Because most of the universities are choked up. Therefore, if colleges of education, we have about 67 colleges of education in Nigeria, if colleges of education are allowed to run degree, even if it is 2,000 students that they churn out in each of the college, that we give about 130 or 34,000 students will be added to the 500,000 people the JAM, has the space for university education. So we look at this as part of our own contribution to how we can expand the space for more of our students to be able to have access to higher education, and that will also help the government in curtailing some of the waste, because some of the colleges of education, they don't even have enough students. But for degree students, they will make them to have more students. So the waste at the level of government will also have been curtailed.
So this argument you just made could make one conclude that colleges said people don't find colleges of education attractive anymore. When you see that,
I've said it. That was the first thing I told you. I told you you cannot have good, better, best, and you have to make a choice, a first choice. Your first choice will definitely go to the best. Your second choice will go to better. And before you talk about good, you have a good, better, best. So, and irrespective of the way, it is the natural instinct. If you have your result, you have everything, and say, where do you want to go? Oh, I want to go to university. It's natural. So whether we like it or not, and with the more people are having good results, so, and they want to go to universities, even more than polytechnics, more than colleges of education. That is the reality. So we cannot continue to pretend that doesn't exist. That exists. So, but with degree awarding status, then there will be a leverage. It's just a matter of choice. You want to go to universities, you want to go to, because what we are looking at is, for if you go to college of education and after NCE, you also bag your degree, you are double qualified. You are not just a graduate, you are an NCE graduate, which certifies you to be able to teach at the basic level. When you have your degree, you are also a degree holder, which makes you to be able to go higher to any other level to operate. So you are double qualified. It's like in the nursing profession, where you have the general nursing, then you have the midwifery, then it's, oh, you are double qualified. So it is when you have the 2 degrees, you as a nurse, as a nurse, you are better placed than a person with just one of the 2. So if we have a graduate, and even you, if as a person I have a school, I establish a private institution, and somebody comes with NCE and degree, and somebody comes with degree, by assessment, definitely, I know that let's say the 2 of them have the same capacity in terms of what they can deliver. But if I want to look at who among them will be more useful to me, then I will prefer a person that is double qualified. because he can teach at the level of my basic physics class, and I can also move him or her to the secondary school level to teach at that level. So you look at this, and this will give quality of education an advantage even over the university. And that is what we are pushing at the level of that act.
There is more to say, but before we go, I would just like to clarify something about what you just said now. If you say that colleges of education should be awarding NC as well as degrees, first of all, we have to consider the fact that many of them might not have the personnel to handle this. I mean, the personnel that degree awarding institutions which we normally have in order to achieve that goal. And we also have to consider the fact that maybe because of this gap, some state governments, like in Delta and some other states, they've attempted to convert colleges of education into universities of education. Don't you think that doing that would cater for any gaps that will be left in achieving this degree awarding status?
Yeah, well, it is as a proprietor, I mean the state governors, they have the right to tinker, with the institutions. But it's still a problem of lack of understanding of what NCE certificates can do. For a state without a college of education, that means all the graduates, those that we teach at the level of crèche, because people are not, if you look at what is happening, we have the level of crèche, we have the level of nursery school, nursery level, we have the level, the primary school, then the junior secondary. I can, as I had said, and I can say it, you can take it anywhere. There is no graduate that can teach at this crèche, nursery, and primary school level better than an NC graduate. And that is basic. If you could recollect, some people at the time were clamoring that teacher colleges, the teacher grade 2 colleges should be brought back. Why? Because they started to see gap in the teaching of primary school students. Just, they were looking at it that they were not actually being taught the way they were being taught in those days. And that is to tell you that NC as a certificate, an NC graduate that has the quality, take him or her into the classroom to teach crèche, nursery, and primary, and you will see high level of delivery. And no graduates of education in any university can perform that task. They were specifically trained to teach at that level. And that is the truth. If we are talking about college, state government converting universities, it is a very simple. One of the problems we have today is that when you are talking about education, even when you have a commissioner for education who is a lawyer, a commissioner of education who is an engineer, a commissioner of education who is a medical doctor, what do you expect from him, or an architect? That is the level at which we don't understand what education means. And some of them, even when they talk about it, because they don't know what NC actually means or what they can do. So it's simply, NC student, the college education, they let them go have university. Yes, university is good. Everybody wants university education. But because we know that even NC graduates still want university education. That is the truth. And that is why we are saying that we can have a dual degree, whereby you have your NC, and having completed your NC, you migrate to degree. Then you complete that 5-year cycle, and you become a qualified, double qualified teacher, and you can teach anywhere in the world. And that is our focus, and that is what we are working towards.
This is the Education Podcast by EduCeleb, and we've been on with Dr. Smart Olugbeko, who is the National President of the Colleges of Education Academic Staff Union. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us, sir. So,
thank you.
Just in conclusion, I would just like to clarify something about what you said earlier. Yeah. So, how many? It seems like I think I heard you saying 5 years. The program will take 5 years now, instead of 3 or 2 years that it is at the moment. Is that what you said?
What I'm saying, NCE is 3 years.
Okay.
Then degree is 3 years, make it 6. But we are looking at a situation whereby we can have NC 3 years and have degree 2 years. So that will make them to have spent 5 years. For you to become a professional, the universal criterion is that that person must have been trained for at least 5 years. That is the universal criterion. You have to be trained for 5 years. You can recollect there was a time in Nigeria when law was 4 years. For you to become a lawyer, or for you to read law in the university, you spend 4 years. But later it was moved to 5 years. Even pharmacy was moved from 4 to 5 years. So nursing, 5 years. So most professions, for one of the university criteria for a profession is to spend 5 years, because one of the years will have to be used for internship, used for placement that will make you to be qualified. So what we are looking at is 3 years training in the NCE. Then we are talking about 2 or 3 years training at the degree level. So an NC graduate, you have completed 3 years, then migrate to the degree level in the same institution for another 3 or 2 years.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir. So
thank you.
There is much to ask on to learn from you for what you said so far, and it's been an interesting discussion about teacher education vis-a-vis what COEASU and what teachers at that level at the colleges of education can do to move things around. So we appreciate this opportunity to speak with you, and hope that tomorrow, when we have to speak with you, you'll be available. So, sure. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it too. Thank you. Good night.
So until next time, I remain your host, Abdul Salam. Bye.